Sullivan is an attorney. She is president of the NAACP Boston chapter, and as I was just saying, won the official nomination of the Democratic Party over 60. 62.4, very impressive number. So Tanisha, if you are ready, we are ready for you. You can come right up.
I want to start by saying certainly thank you for the invitation to be here, and thank you to the party for the endorsement. We went into the convention very focused on making sure that we would make the ballot. As you all know, we needed 15%. In order to make sure that we got on the ballot. And just so very grateful to have the confidence of the party, of the Democratic Party here in Massachusetts, not just with, a little bit of a statement of an endorsement, but truly a super majority of delegates representing communities across Massachusetts, really saying that our message for this moment, a message that really is about the fullness of the office of Secretary of State and us being able to activate every aspect of that office to not just strengthen our democracy, but to make sure that we're empowering people along the way. This office for so many folks, has been thought of as just the place where should I admit the person in the waiting room? Okay.
I'm not a co-host.
I can do that. I got it.
Look at this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Here comes Jen. Here comes Jen. All right. If you want, I can transfer the host to you. What is your name? I can transfer.
I'm Kelly.
Let's see.
Yeah. Why don't you do that, and then you don't have to.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Should we get her to be our new Zoom member?
I'm gonna add Kelly as a co-host there, and then you'll be able to see.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes. Thank you. Just imagine what you're going to do as Secretary of State.
We can, we do multitask. But truly, most people when they think about this office, they think about elections and voting, and that's really the beginning and end of it. But having an understanding that particularly right now, it's important for us to know and to activate the fullness of the office. So I do want to start by just repeating a couple of things. So by way of background, I am a practicing lawyer, not just, I practice law, and I'm a civil rights leader. And through the NAACP, we've not only been able to advance public policy to help increase greater access and opportunity for our children in public schools, for our small, micro Main Street small businesses, certainly through the COVID pandemic, working to ensure that communities across the Commonwealth had access to testing, and when we got vaccines, had access to vaccines. And so the public policy space I love to be in, but of course I'm a civil rights leader, and so we do, from time to time, and I'm a lawyer, from time to time we do have to delve into litigation when necessary. But I bring all of those experiences to this role. And so I certainly understand from an administrative standpoint, from a technical standpoint, the nuts and bolts as it relates to voting and elections, right? But I also have this lens of equity of civil rights. And so the way that plays out is I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that we're breaking down administrative barriers for folks to be able to register to vote. I'm not giving up the fight for same-day vote registration. And ensuring that we've got vote by mail, of course, those administrative pieces. But I'm also deeply committed to ensuring that we tackle voter participation gaps. So here in Massachusetts, most of us, and me included, have relatively no problem when it comes to registering to vote and casting a ballot. It's like, you go in 15 minutes sometimes, right? If you're an early voter like me on E-Day, in and out. And so most of us who who are regular voters have a fairly okay time through that process. The issue is that we do have certain pockets of our communities across Massachusetts, communities that are predominantly people of color, communities that are predominantly working class families, communities that have larger populations of seniors, especially like in our rural communities that have larger populations of folks living below the poverty line that actually don't have the same experiences. Okay? And that has led to deep voter participation gaps. I'm someone who believes that each of us, regardless of who we are, each of us, citizens of this country, have the right to vote, and that we should, as a society, be doing all we can to ensure that folks are not only registered to vote, but they're actually getting to that ballot box. Because as long as people are being left out, we don't have a full and inclusive democracy. And so that's the type of work that I look forward to doing as Secretary of State, in partnership with town clerks, in partnership with local community-based organizations and civics associations, working together to identify ways to increase voter participation, because that's a critical element factor in our democracy. But this office is also the Chief Information Office. Massachusetts, unfortunately, is the least transparent state in the entire country. The birthplace of democracy, the least transparent. The Secretary of State is, by definition, the Chief Information Officer. Okay. Having responsibility for helping us in the public have access to public information. And so I believe it's the responsibility of the Secretary of State to break down barriers to make sure that public information is actually in the public square. I graduated from the University of Virginia. We won't talk about Thomas Jefferson personally, okay? So that is a wholly different conversation. But I do want to bring into the space his ideology related to democracy. And that is public information in the public square, public debate in the public square, the public being an active part of governing. At UVA, we were taught about self-governance, right? That's the people really taking the lead. Okay. And I believe that in order for that to be the case here, for us to truly realize the full potential of the American democracy, the people need access to information. Okay. And so as Secretary of State, I will work with our legislature and other elected officials to help reform our public records law to remove some of those exemptions. The exemptions that keep our state legislature from having to disclose what's going on behind closed doors, the executive office, and yes, the judiciary. I think that's really important. But the other thing I think is important is for us to ensure that even as information comes into the public square, that we're doing the work, and this is roll up your sleeves work, that we're doing the work to ensure that people actually know how to use that information, right? It's one thing to know the date, time, and location of a meeting. It's another thing to know what you can do when you get there, right? What to expect when you leave, right? And so I do, as a Chief Information Officer, it's not enough to just share information and say, okay, now it's on you to figure it out. I believe part of this role is education, right? Education in community, supporting education in our public schools. I'm the daughter of a public school educator. My dad spent 40 years working in the Boston public schools. So ensuring that our young people, K-12, have access to not only quality but consistent civics education, right? education has to be part of the role of that chief information officer. The Secretary of State is also the chief corporations officer. If you want to do business in Massachusetts, you have to go through the Secretary of State's office. If you want to start a nonprofit, you have to go through the Secretary of State's office, okay? Today, that relationship is transactional. It's administrative. If you're a business owner, you want to start a business, you have to register your business with the Secretary of State's office. You got to file some fees. And oh, by the way, we are the most expensive state in the country to start a business because of the fees. And you go there annually to file annual reports. And if you want a certificate of good standing, you call the Secretary of State's office. That's pretty much it. As someone who's been practicing law now for 20 years, I get that piece of it, because I've done that piece of it. But as a civil rights leader, as someone who cares deeply about community and about opportunity for all people, what I know is that small businesses, small micro businesses like the ones my mom started when I was a child, those businesses need more support. They are the backbone of our communities. They hire local people. They help to enhance public safety. They help to build a sense of community. They are vitally important to our neighborhoods, small businesses. Those businesses, I believe, should be receiving more support from the Secretary of State's office. It shouldn't just be the place they've got to go to file paperwork and send money. That should be the place they go to be connected to a supplier diversity office because they're a veteran-owned, a woman-owned, or a minority-owned business. That should be the place they can go if they want to be connected to local community resources that can provide them with the technical supports they need to thrive. The Secretary of State's office should be a partner in helping to secure and strengthen our economy. As the gateway to business, it's the first stop. And so it should continue to be a partner throughout the lifespan of a business. That's the type of work that I look forward to doing. And oh, by the way, one of the first things I will do is file legislation to help ensure that we are prioritizing our small business community. I will be working to ensure that we bring fee structure equity, meaning if you are one of my favorite coffee shops, I live in Hyde Park, but one of my favorite coffee shops is in West Roxbury. In West Roxbury, there's a little coffee shop on Center Street, family owned, it's called Recreo. I will work to ensure that the fees that Recreo pays to stay in business are not the same fees that my second favorite coffee shop, Dunkin' Donuts, pays. Because it's not fair. You know, and that's what equity is about, fairness. And I think it's important for us to be able to encourage certainly the development of small businesses in our communities because of all that they do for our neighborhoods. But we've got to make sure that the costs, the fees, the government fees, because that's what we're talking about, government fees, are not prohibiting those businesses from even getting off the ground. That's part of the work of the Secretary of State. Who knew? Right? The last piece I'll leave you with, and then we'll open it up for some questions. Everything that I'm describing really speaks to my belief that this office in this moment needs proactive and engaged leadership. This is not a moment in our democracy for us to kind of be like, okay, we're Massachusetts, we're okay, we're just gonna be on autopilot, nothing to see here, folks. This is really a moment for us here in Massachusetts to see, okay, what more can we do? If we're feeling like we're okay, what more can we do to really become a beacon for the rest of the country? So another example I'll give you. This gets me excited. So the Secretary of State, in addition to being the Chief Elections Officer, the Chief Information Officer, the Chief Corporations Officer, the Secretary of State's office has responsibility for our historic archives in Massachusetts. And the Secretary of State, all of the records are kept by the Secretary of State. The history of Massachusetts is preserved by the Secretary of State's office. And the Secretary of State chairs our historical commission in Massachusetts. The commission, told you this was exciting. The commission, many municipalities know, issues grants for community, for the preservation of historic sites, historic buildings, to renovate them, to preserve them. But the commission also issues historic tax credits that are used by some real estate developers to finance their deals. So basically, the historic tax credits can be used to help pay for development. Okay. And the commission reviews applications, receives and reviews applications, and makes decisions on the allocation of these tax credits. We're talking about millions of dollars of tax credits. We're not talking about like just a little bit of change here. Okay. Millions of dollars. Right now, that process is administrative. Fill out the application, file the application, the commission reviews the application, makes a determination. Well, we have a housing crisis in Massachusetts. We have an affordable housing crisis in Massachusetts, impacting communities and families across the Commonwealth. When I put an opportunity lens on historic tax credits, when I put an equity lens on historic tax credits, when I put a proactive lens on that process, what I see is an opportunity for us to give a priority review to development projects that are going to build affordable housing in communities that need it most. That's the difference between saying, you know what, we're fine, like the process is fine, the tax credits are getting out there. The process is fine, like no major crisis. And the process is okay, but what more can it be? How can it help more people? How can it help us tackle one of the biggest issues facing our Commonwealth today? So I'm running for this to be the Secretary of State, an office that I believe is a chief democracy office for the Commonwealth. Because I do have a different vision for what this can be. I do have a different belief in what we can do through this office. And I want to do the work. It's going to be a lot of work, but I want to do it because I believe in the difference it can make for families, for residents, for each of us. Most importantly, for our communities. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today in person and you all on the line. Would love to, if we have time, to have a little conversation, questions.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much. Close to the computer so people at home can hear. What we'll do is, I'll step aside. So we will go back and forth between those who are present and those who are online. So we'll take a question from someone here in the audience, and then Kelly will be checking the chat. So write your question into the chat. and then we'll get to you next. So we can start with David, I see has a question.
So first, congrats for getting on the ballot.
Oh, wait, stop this a second. And Tanisha, once the question's asked, you don't mind just kind of restating it?
Perfect.
Thank you.
I decided that I was going to vote for you at the convention before I knew anything about you, just because I wanted you to get the 15%. I've got character issues with our current Secretary of State when you consider some of the nastiness you brought up in the last election. If you were late to school in the 5th grade, he's probably going to bring it up as a character issue. As I learned more about you, I said, this is someone who I can support. And then I heard your speech at the convention, and it removed, there was one final doubt. My daughter graduated from UVA, so I now have no regrets. So I was going to ask you 2 parts about the corporate division, but you addressed that.
Yeah.
Most people also don't know that securities regulation is done through the Secretary of State's office.
Yes.
As an aside, our current mayor used to work as an attorney in that division for Billy Galvin. Most of us, I think, know that half of black wealth was wiped out by the securities crisis. The subprime market, basically, canary in the coal mine, screw black people first and the rest of the country. That was not adequately enough invested. You're going to have power over that division. People should have gone to jail. So I'm sure you've already thought about this, so I'm giving you the lead in to talk a little bit about it.
Well, thank you, David. So the question relates to the securities division. So the Secretary of State, in addition to the other areas of responsibility I outlined, is also the chief securities regulator here in Massachusetts. And so the question, as I'm interpreting it, so the background is that, through subprime lending, there were many communities, specifically the Black community, that was adversely impacted by the subprime market. And as a result, there was a devastating impact on wealth, right? Because we know home ownership is one of the leading ways that families accumulate wealth. So the question is, and a concern that the current Secretary of State, I'm just repeating the message, okay? The current Secretary of State did not do enough to hold lenders accountable for really the devastation. Okay, so the question is, what will I do in that office with the authority of the chief securities regulator? Will it be different? The answer is yes.
Oh, I knew the answer was yes.
Okay, so yes. The answer will be yes. There are a few things in that office. So one, we absolutely need to make sure that we are protecting families from fraud, right? And that we're protecting families from violations of securities law. What we know is that, and hopefully, prayerfully, this continues, but what we know is that so many of our families rely on pensions and 401ks, rely on the equity that's in our homes to ensure that we can have a retirement with dignity, right? And so I do believe it's critically important for that office to be a vigorous guardian when it comes to protecting communities from fraud, from securities fraud. And have the willingness to bring charges when appropriate and ensure that there are consequences for fraudulent activity. Critically important. I believe in consequences. The other piece of this is, I also think we've got to do a better job out of that office. Remember I mentioned about education? This office should be doing more by way of education, financial literacy education within our communities, so that it's not just about the office being, the knight with the sword, but it's about empowering people to protect ourselves. Right? And so making sure that the office is working with the financial services industry, requiring them to do more by way of public education so that communities can learn more about securities opportunities and securities risk, right? That's empowering. The third piece is this office, as a regulatory office, has to be, in my opinion, actively involved in the development of regulations that will govern new securities. Not just sitting back waiting for those regulations to be developed, but really taking an active interest in the creation of regulations for new securities. And what I'm thinking of specifically in this moment are digital assets, what they call digital assets, right? And so it's still not a great moment right now for cryptocurrency, okay? But the fact of the matter is, it's here to stay, okay? Digital assets are here to stay. When Fidelity Investments decides that they're gonna invest and they're gonna offer these things to their clients, here to stay, okay? But it is a new asset, and the regulations are still being formed. And so, as Secretary of State, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and wait to hear what the regulations are. I want to be in that mix. And I want to be in those conversations because we've got to make sure that as the regulations are formed, that there remains opportunity for people, for all people, not just people who are wealthy, but for all people. And we've got to make sure that the market is appropriately regulated to protect all people from fraudulent activity so that they don't lose all of their money, their hard-earned money. Right? And so that's another area. So when I first started practicing law, it's in the corporate space. Again, I'm in my 20th year of practice, so I've been around this for a minute. So the corporations division, the securities division, the historic tax work are areas that I absolutely look forward to delving deeper into. One, yes, to be a protector and a guardian, but also to work to ensure that we keep pathways to opportunity open.
Do we have a question online, Kelly?
We do not.
Okay. Gail.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I really don't have a question, but when I got handed this thing, I looked and I saw you had 3 bullets. And so one of my questions was going to be, can you tell us more about your 3 bullets? But you hit it head on, so you're off the hook on there. Thank you very much. And like Dave, I went to vote for you for the delegate so that we could get you on the ballot, and because Mary Bucks told me to do it.
Well, I appreciate it, and truly, I remember, I'll share this story. So as I was, for those of you, how many folks were at the convention or watched? Okay, so quite a few in the room. Okay. Folks online, anybody at the convention? No? Okay. So I actually, early on, actually it was the start of the speeches on Saturday, I started to kind of just get in my zone, okay? And so I had my, put my ear pods in and had my music going to just calm and inspire. And so I really didn't know what was going on in the arena. Didn't know what people were saying, just I was focused on what we needed to do. Because it's high stakes, we had to get that 15%. And Aaron, who's here from my team, will tell you that I was like, are we gonna get this 15%? Okay. Okay. And so I was really focused. And so it wasn't until I got behind stage preparing to come on that I, earpods out and, hey, let's go do this. And so got off, finished, and got off, and I said to the team, I said, okay, do you think we did okay? Right? And they were like, yeah. We think you did okay. I was like, okay. And so a few minutes passed, and I said, well, after the balloting closed, and I said, well, like, how are we doing? Like, are we there? Like, how are we doing? And they were like, Tanisha, the question isn't whether you got the 15%, that's over. They're like, The question is, by how much are you gonna win this thing? And I was like, what? So I was truly surprised, but really humbled by just how much. Because truly, across Massachusetts, tiny, tiny towns, big, big cities, people leaned in, and said, you know what? We can do this. We want to be a part of this. This is something different. And I say to folks all the time, well, before the convention, I asked for your support at the convention. I asked for your support at the convention. I asked for your vote in September at the primary and in November. But most importantly, if you believe in this vision and what's possible, that you commit to doing this work with us going forward. Because all of the things that I can see for this office that I'm sharing with folks require collective action. I said at the convention, democracy is not a solo act. It's not one person out there saving us all. It's all of us saving each other, right? And so it truly is an ask to join a collective movement beyond, in your backyard, right? Doing the work in your neighborhood to help strengthen our democracy. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Would you like to make a campaign plug before you go, your website or anything like that?
Oh, wonderful, yes. So if you are interested in learning more, if you're interested in helping us along the way to actually win this race in September, we are building a strong team, and it is a strong team across Massachusetts, across the Commonwealth. You can do that for those who are here in the room. Aaron is here from our team. He can get your contact information. You can also visit our website, TanishaSullivan.com, Tanisha Sullivan, SULLIVAN.com, to volunteer. And we've got folks who are making phone calls, sending text messages. We've got folks who are graphic designers helping us with graphic design. Pretty much anything that one might be interested in doing, there's an opportunity to volunteer, giving your gifts and your talents in volunteerism. And then of course, if you're interested in making a contribution to our campaign, you can do that through the website as well, TanishaSullivan.com. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I ask for your vote in September, and I ask that if you are going to vote for us, don't keep it to yourself. Okay. I grew up in a Baptist church, and there's an old Baptist song. It said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. And so, if you're going to vote for us, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with other people so that we can together really build the type of democracy that we all deserve. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tanisha. And during your presentation, when you were talking about historic tax credits, Kelly gave me a look because I was the long-term time historical commission chair in Melrose. And I will just say that oftentimes I think people look at historic preservation and affordable housing and see them as natural opponents. So to hear someone talking about how, yes, we can actively bring those together,
Yes.
is a great thing.
Yes.
Great thing. All right then.
Shopping for a car? Applying for a job? Looking for a home? Or just getting your financial house in order? Then it's time to check your credit report. Good news, it's free. The law entitles you to one free copy of your credit report from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies every 12 months. Why is it important to check your credit report? It has important information about your financial accounts, how you pay your bills, and if you file for bankruptcy. You want to make sure everything is accurate, especially before you buy a house or a car or apply for a job. If you notice something wrong, contact the credit reporting company and business providing the information to correct the error. And checking your report can help you guard against identity theft. Visit ftc.gov/ID theft if you spot accounts that aren't yours. How do you order your free credit report? Order online from annualcreditreport.com, the only authorized website for free credit reports, or call 1-877-322-8228. You'll need to provide your name, address, social security number, and date of birth to verify your identity. Keep in mind, you're entitled to one free copy of your credit report every 12 months from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies. So the next time someone asks, "How's your credit?" you'll have the answer. To order your free credit report, visit annualcreditreport.com or call 1-877-322-8228.
Many hotels, coffee shops, airports, and other places offer free Wi-Fi hotspots. They're convenient. Unfortunately, they often aren't secure. That could make it easy for someone else to access your online accounts or steal your personal information. So, what can you do to reduce your risk? Encryption is the key to keeping your information secure online. When information is encrypted, it's scrambled into a code so others can't get it. How can you be sure your information is encrypted? 2 ways. 1. Use a secure network to access the internet. Don't assume that a public Wi-Fi network uses encryption. In fact, most don't. You can only be sure that a network uses effective encryption if it asks you to provide a WPA or WPA2 password. If you aren't sure, it's best to assume the network is not secure. The second way to protect your information is to send it through a secure website. A secure site will encrypt your information, even if the network doesn't. If the web address starts with HTTPS, then your information is encrypted before it's sent. The S stands for secure. Look for HTTPS on every page you visit, not just when you log in. If you use an unsecured Wi-Fi network to log into an unencrypted website, strangers using that network can hijack your account and steal your private documents, contacts, family photos, even your username and password. If that happens, an imposter could use your email or social networking account to pretend to be you and scam people you care about. Or a hacker could use your password from one website to try to log into a different account and access your personal or financial information. Here are some steps you can take to protect yourself when you use a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Only log in or enter personal information on secure sites that use encryption. Again, look for a web address that begins with HTTPS. Don't use the same username and password for different sites. It could give someone who gains access to one of your accounts access to many of your accounts. Never email financial information, including credit card, social security, and checking account numbers, even if the network and website are secure. Don't stay permanently signed in to accounts. When you've finished using a site, log out. The bottom line, secure Wi-Fi hotspots require a password. Secure websites start with HTTPS. Remember, it's easy to find trusted information about computer security. Just visit onguardonline.gov, the federal government site to help you be safe, secure, and responsible online. Every day, you hear about scammers, hackers, and thieves trying to use the internet to steal your money and your financial information. The fact is, you, me, we can foil many of their attempts. Every day, we do things to make it tough for bad guys to break into our homes and our cars. We can make it tougher for them to break into our computers, too. Here are some ways to foil a hacker and protect your financial information. Install security software on your computer. Well-known companies offer plenty of free options. Set the software to update automatically, so it can deal with any new security threats. While you're at it, set your operating system and web browser to update automatically too. If you're not sure how, use the help function and search for automatic updates. If you get a phone call, an email, a text, or a pop-up that says your computer has a virus or malware, don't buy the story or the security software they're selling. It could be a trick to get you to buy software that's worthless or even harmful. Treat your financial information like cash. It's a hot commodity. If someone asks for your financial information, say your social security, credit card, or bank account number, ask why they need it and how they're going to protect it. If you think you found a good deal online, but you aren't familiar with the company, dig a little deeper. A quick internet search with the name of the company and the word review or complaint can reveal a lot. Always look for a physical address and phone number too. That way you know who to contact if there's a problem. Don't provide your personal or financial information unless the website you're on is secure. If the URL doesn't start with HTTPS, don't enter your financial information. That S stands for secure. It means the information you're sending is encrypted and protected. Make your passwords count. They should be at least 10 characters and a mix of numbers, letters, and special characters. Don't use your name, birth date, or common words. Don't use the same password for several accounts, as tempting as that may be. If it's stolen, hackers can use it to access your other accounts. Keep your passwords in a secure place, and don't share them with anyone. Back up your computer files. For example, copy important files to an external hard drive on a regular basis. That way, if there's a problem with your computer, you won't lose everything. Life is online. Whether you live it using a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop, it's a good time to make computer security a habit. Find out more at onguardonline.gov, the federal government site to help you be safe, secure, and responsible online.
Telemarketing fraud is a crime that affects millions of Americans every year. Telemarketing scammers will say anything to commit fraud, even if you're the one initiating the phone call.
Hi, I see you're responding to our ad for a guaranteed line of credit. We believe that everyone deserves a loan. However, we do charge a small processing fee in order to get your application in the system. All I need is your bank's routing numbers. They're at the bottom of a check.
I was thinking of starting a business, but I didn't have the startup cash. My credit isn't so hot, so I thought this would be a great way to get the money I needed. I didn't realize it was a scam. Now I know better. Hello.
Mr. Johnson, we've got a credit card for you guaranteed.
Look, I'm not interested. Don't call me again, or I'll report you to the FTC.
Telemarketing scams usually start with a phone call, but they can also start with an online ad or a piece of mail.
I clicked through an ad on the internet and filled out a form. It seemed legitimate. They called a few hours later and said people like me were making lots of money with just a small investment. They said it was easy to get started and their business experts were just a phone call away. I didn't know they were a fraud. I still get calls for bogus business opportunities. I must be on some sort of list. But now I know better.
I understand you want to make money from home.
I'm not interested. Goodbye.
The Federal Trade Commission and your state attorney general are working hard to stop telemarketing fraud. You can help. Recognize, report, register. First, learn to recognize the signs of telemarketing fraud, like callers who ask for money first or who want to know your bank account, credit card, or social security number. Scammers may even have your billing information before they call you. Often, they're trying to get you to say okay so they can claim you approved a charge. Second, if you have been scammed or you think someone is trying to scam you, report it to the Federal Trade Commission. It's as easy as going to ftc.gov and clicking on the link on the right. It's more helpful to the FTC if you can give the name or phone number of the company that called you and the date they called. Third, join the millions of Americans who have registered their phone numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry. It's easy. You can register online at donotcall.gov. Be sure to complete the process by clicking the link in the confirmation email you receive. You can also call toll-free 1-888-382-1222 from the number you wish to register. And remember, although telemarketing scammers may seem friendly, they're anything but. They're trying to worm their way into your wallet. You can stop them by keeping your information to yourself, no matter how tempting the offer. Let's say goodbye to fraudulent telemarketers. Visit ftc.gov/phone fraud to learn more about how to recognize and report telemarketing fraud.
Light bulbs are getting more efficient. They use a lot less energy to give you the light you want, which means you'll pay lower energy bills. Better light bulbs also mean a better way to shop. You're probably used to buying light bulbs based on watts, but watts only tell you how much energy a bulb uses, not brightness. If you want to know how bright a bulb is, you need to think lumens. The more lumens, the brighter the light, no matter the bulb. A traditional bulb uses 60 watts to produce 800 lumens, but this bulb delivers 800 lumens using only 15 watts. All these bulbs use different amounts of energy, but produce the same amount of light. How do you know which one to buy? To help you decide, light bulb packages will have a lighting facts label. It'll tell you a bulb's brightness and an estimate of its energy cost and lifespan. So the next time you shop for a light bulb, look for the lumens and the lighting facts label. It's a bright idea.
If you have a telephone, robocalls may be ruining your day. I'm Katie Daffin, an attorney at the Federal Trade Commission. If you answer the phone and hear a recorded message instead of a live person, it's a robocall. If the recording is a sales message and you haven't given your written permission to get calls from the company on the other end, the call is illegal, period. So, when you get an illegal robocall, here's what to do. Hang up the phone. Don't press 1 to speak to a live operator, and don't press any other number to get off the list. If you respond by pressing any number, it will probably just lead to more robocalls. You might consider contacting your phone provider and asking them to block the number and whether they charge for that service. Remember that telemarketers change caller ID information easily and often, so it might not be worth paying a fee to block a number that will change. Finally, contact the FTC to report your experience. You can do that online at ftc.gov or by calling 1-877-FTC-HELP. To learn more about illegal robocalls and what the FTC is doing to stop them, visit ftc.gov/robocalls. That's ftc.gov/robocalls.
Identity theft happens. It's an unfortunate fact of modern life. But there are certain steps you can take to help keep your personal information from falling into the wrong hands. Every day you do things to protect what's most important to you. And you know what? You do them almost automatically. Routine things like looking both ways before you cross, brushing your teeth, and buckling your seatbelt. Another routine to get into is keeping tabs on your identity and personal information. Here are 5 easy ways you can do it. Read your credit card and bank statements carefully and often. Know your payment due dates. If a bill doesn't show up when you expect it, look into it. Read the statements from your health insurance plan. Make sure the claims paid match the care you got. Shred any documents with personal and financial information. Review each of your 3 credit reports at least once a year. It's easy and it's free. And before you know it, protecting your personal information can be as routine as locking your doors at night. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
If you have a telephone, it probably seems like illegal robocalls are out of control. I'm Katie Daffin, an attorney at the Federal Trade Commission. If you pick up the phone and hear a recorded message instead of a live person, that's a robocall. Consumers are getting more and more robocalls, and they are not happy about it. As the number of calls has multiplied, the number of complaints has too. The reason for the spike in robocalls has to do with technology. Companies are using auto dialers that can send out thousands of phone calls every minute for an incredibly low cost. What's important is that the companies that use this technology don't bother to screen for the numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry. If a company doesn't care about obeying the law, you can be sure they're trying to scam you. You've probably gotten robocalls about candidates running for office or charities asking for donations. These robocalls are allowed. But any robocall that's trying to sell you something probably is illegal, unless you've given your written permission to get calls from that company. The FTC has stopped billions, yes, billions of robocalls in the last 2 years. Tracing these calls is a tough job, and there are a few reasons for that. One is that many different companies use the same or very similar recorded messages. Another is that they fake the caller ID information that you see on your phone. That's called caller ID spoofing, and new technology makes it very easy to do. And a third is that the robocallers often place the calls through internet technology that hides their location. At the FTC, we're continuing our aggressive enforcement efforts, and we're also looking for innovative technological solutions to the robocall problem. For more information, please visit ftc.gov/robocalls. That's ftc.gov/robocalls.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things.
2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks.
Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school.
Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
The internet. It offers enormous opportunities to communicate. Most of us, including kids, do all kinds of things online. We connect through email, text, and instant messaging. We post and distribute pictures and videos. We may have profiles on social networks where we share our lives, our plans, and our thoughts with hundreds of people. These ways of communicating and socializing can be convenient and fun, yet they come with certain risks. Many parents wonder, how should I talk to my kids about being safe online? A booklet called NetCetera provides some practical tips. It's based on the idea that the first step to protecting kids online is more about talking than technology. When kids want important information, they turn to their parents. So talk to them about your values, honesty, fairness, courtesy, or whatever values are most important in your family, and how they apply in an online setting. By communicating your values and expectations, you'll help your kids make smarter, more thoughtful decisions when they face tricky situations online. Here are some things to talk about. Social networking sites, chat rooms, and blogs are some ways kids socialize online. They can help kids connect with friends, but it's important to help your children learn how to navigate these spaces safely. Among the pitfalls, sharing too much information and posting pictures or video that can hurt someone's feelings or damage a reputation. Talk to your kids about applying good judgment to help minimize those pitfalls. Most mobile phones have cameras and can shoot video, making it easy for teens to capture and share every moment on the go. Encourage kids to think about their privacy and that of others before they share photos and videos. Cyberbullying is bullying that happens online, and it's a lose-lose proposition. It makes the person being harassed feel bad, and it makes the bully look bad. Talk to your kids about treating others with respect, and let them know they can talk to you if someone harasses them. If that happens, encourage your kids to block the bully if they can, and ignore him or her if they can't. That's because bullies are looking for a reaction. If it continues, ask your kids to save the evidence and share it with you or another adult they trust. Mean behavior usually stops pretty quickly when someone speaks up. Encourage your kids to stand up for themselves and to stand up for someone else being cyberbullied. And talk to your kids about treating others online the same way they want to be treated. Here are some other tips to keep in mind. Start early. Young kids see their parents using smartphones and computers. So as soon as your kids use one themselves, it's time to talk to them about safety. Initiate conversations. Don't wait for kids to come to you. Use everyday chances to talk with them. News stories about cyberbullying, a storyline on TV, both can be the start of a good conversation. Be patient. Most kids need small bits of information, repeated often for it to really sink in. Keep talking. Chances are it'll pay off. Read NetCetera for more information about chatting with your kids about being safe online. It's free, and you'll find it at onguardonline.gov.
Hi, my name's CJ. A few years ago, my father became seriously ill. I did what I could do before he passed, but it took its toll. I lost my job, my house. I'm getting back on my feet, but I don't know when there'll be food on the table. How'd I do, CJ?
We could be twins.
Well, cousins, maybe.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.